Hello and welcome back to the Cine Skinny, or as we dubbed it on the way in the lift down to the studio today, Nice Chairs on D. We are in the lovely meeting room at Codebase that has two massive swivel chairs, and then me and Ellie also just sat on a pair of office chairs in the middle. We're kind of mediating the world's strangest tennis match. The whole gang's here today. It's me, Jamie, Ellie, and Anahit. Everybody say hello.
Hello.
We've got lots to talk about today. We've got one very, very arty film and one very, very mainstream film. Jamie's been in the Czech Republic, so he's going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about cult cinema, what makes a cult film, why they are always on at various cinemas and on the television, and talk about some of our favourites, especially from seasons that are coming up at cinemas across the country that we live in, brackets, Scotland. So, a fun time ahead. Are you excited, Jamie? You look excited.
Super excited.
Look at him. Super excited.
Yes, he's got his little t-shirt on.
And you know what? I believe him. Shall we... You know what? I'm going to mess with the format because we've talked about Jamie's t-shirt. We've talked about the Czech Republic. Shall we just go straight into it?
Yeah.
We'll ignore that meeting that we had literally 3 minutes ago when we talked about what order we're going to do things in. It seems like a natural break to say that Jamie was at the Karlovy Vary International Film Festival last week. This is correct.
I was,
You're not being interrogated, like you can play along. You were at the Karlovy Vary International Film Festival, weren't you, Jamie?
I was. Thank you for saying, because it's a bit of a mouthful. But it's just a great wee festival. Well, I say wee festival. It's actually a really big festival in the Czech Republic. It takes place in a little spa town, which is about an hour from Prague. So the town is kind of picture book perfect. It's like this kind of German...
Sorry,
I'm listening to you.
Yeah, I just distracted Ellie, who noticed that I hadn't been recording on the Roadcaster, but we're recording on the computer, so it's fine.
You missed all that gold.
Now, Jimmy, tell me that it's a spa town near the German border.
Near the German border.
See, I was paying attention. I can multitask. I can get things wrong and listen at the same time.
So it looks, it's got that kind of look of like a Germanic little town. It's got like very interesting architecture. But then in the heart of the town is this huge concrete cinema palace and hotel called Thermal Hotel. It's kind of brutalist structure where all the cinemas are. So it's like to me, it's like kind of the perfect festival in that it's got all the kind of glamour and glitz of like, you know, Cannes or Venice or something. You know, it had big stars there. You've got Michael Douglas. Who else was there? Stellan Skarsgård. Dakota Fanning was there. No, not Dakota Fanning. Dakota Johnson. Sorry. Sorry, Dakota. So like big celebrities were there, but it doesn't feel like, you know, you're excluded from all that. It's like very kind of like egalitarian. There's like a kind of scramble for all these great films, but you can basically get into everything. It's like actually kind of amazing how they fill all the cinemas, but you never feel like you're missing out on anything. I think I missed out on one film that I didn't get to see. So I don't quite know how they make a festival so big and so kind of like glitzy, but take out all the stress of it, which is I think one of the worst things about attending a festival, which I'm sure Anahit will attest. You know, like the queuing, the kind of like desperate trying to get the last ticket before it goes. But yeah, there's none of that at Karlovy Vary. It's a very kind of like fun. It kind of has a feeling of like a music festival. You know, like there's a lot of kind of young people go there. A lot of people go there and just camp. Like it's not there's like hotels and stuff obviously, but like it's like there's like a big campsite where a lot of people just stay and come and just see films, you know, so it's got a real kind of vibe about it, which is kind of different to a normal festival. There's music. They had like Seal and LaRue were singing. You know, it's like there's like music happening throughout the town. It's like very fun, and the films are great. So yeah, I saw some really good films. I saw a lot of the films in the Crystal Globe, which is essentially Karlovy Vary's kind of Palme d'Or or kind of Golden Bear. It's their kind of big award, which are all kind of brand new world premieres. The winner of that was a Czech-Slovak film called Better Go Mad in the Wild, which I didn't see because I never see the winner of... I don't know why, I just always missed the winning film. But the best film I saw in that competition was Out of Love, which is a really wonderful French drama about kind of grumpy insurance broker who ends up having to take care of her niece and nephew, and it becomes like a mystery about why the niece and nephew's mother's missing, that she has to take care of her. But then it becomes actually more about like how you survive when somebody just disappears, and how you kind of fill in the gaps. Really beautiful, really, really moving film.
Is that the film, not to interrupt, is that the film where the director who also wrote it is like 26 or something disgraceful?
He's 25. It's his third film.
Disgusting.
He made his first film when he was 14.
Stop, are you serious?
He's called Nathan Ambrosini. Very talented. I think this film could actually travel well and kind of play everywhere. It's like kind of like got that kind of, definitely be the type of film that would play at Glasgow or the French Film Festival or something. So that's one you might see. And then it's also, so it's got all these brand new films, but it's also a festival where you can go and catch up on all the best stuff from Berlin and Sundance and Cannes. So I got to see, a lot of films I've been looking forward to see for ages. Probably my favourite film of the whole festival was Sarat. Oliver Lax's film, which I think won, I want to say, the jury prize at Cannes. It won one of the kind of bigger awards, not the main prize, but it won kind of second or third prize. That's a kind of real kind of physical experience. It starts off with this kind of rave in the desert, then it becomes a kind of like almost a kind of survivalist thriller, but it's also kind of undercut with this kind of really moving story about a father looking for his daughter. It is full of the most jaw-dropping twists that knock me for sex. It's a kind of film that I think you should watch in 4DX. I'm not a big fan of 4DX. You should watch this film in 4DX. It's like the sound and the kind of like special effects and the kind of stunts in it are incredible. Another kind of Cannes favourite was Bigan's Resurrection, which is an amazing kind of celebration of cinema. Bigan's like a really young filmmaker from China, and this film is set in 5 chapters, and each chapter takes inspiration from a film style from the kind of 20th century. So like the first part is all kind of like very early silent film. The second part is kind of film noir mixed with a bit of like German expressionism. You go through like there's a gangster section, there's like a more kind of spiritual one, and then it ends with a kind of single take film, which that's Bigan's really famous for, his single takes. It's like a half-hour single take vampire movie, and it's a big celebration of cinema and how great cinema is. So that was like the last film I saw at the festival, and it seems like a perfect way to end the festival because it was just like, saying the movies are great. So
yeah, the Bigan one sounded to me, just from the log line and from the log line of the film I'm about to compare it to, so you can tell me, you're the film buff here, you'll know if I'm talking shit. It reminded me of the description of Uncle Boonmee, the Apichatpong Weerasathrakul film.
It does a bit of that. Actually, what it's more like is something like Cloud Atlas. It's got the idea of like being resurrected, and sort of this character comes back in different sort of generations. It's got a very convoluted, if I go into it, it would take ages, but like essentially it takes place in a world where people don't sleep, but if you do sleep, your life is shorter. So this character they're called phantasms who sleep and dream. So like he dreams and it's the sensation is that he dreams of cinema and he dreams like cinema, and like that's the kind of what we're seeing, and it's him sort of traveling through all these kind of different time frames. So it's like, it's kind of strange film, but I thought kind of beautiful and wonderful. And then I saw things like the new Jafar Pahani film, which is great.
Good?
It's very good. I can't wait to chat to you about it on whenever it comes out. I'm sure it'll come out pretty soon. I really liked If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which is a kind of Lynchian film about a mother whose daughter has an eating disorder, and it's like how that sends her kind of round the bend, and sort of she goes into this deep despair. Really brilliant. Rose Byrne was in that. It's probably going to be a contender for the Oscars, I think. So yeah, just a great film to see lots of good films, but also new stuff as well, and old films, which we can maybe talk about as well.
Nice. Sarat has got a UK distributor, so it'll be coming out later in the year, and Resurrection will probably be out. I'm sure someone will pick it up. And it was the jury prize at Cannes that Sarat won. So yeah, Karlovy Vary, thumbs up from here. Jamie's got his t-shirt on. It's a very nice t-shirt.
It is a nice t-shirt. What is the film on the cover?
It's actually not a film. There was like several sort of little film-like photo shoots done. So this is just one of them. But yeah, there's like a load of them. So
that's cool.
And it says, "Make films, not war" on the back.
Aww.
And it also has my favourite thing, which is that the back print of the t-shirt is the less good part of the t-shirt. Because the amount of times I try to buy a t-shirt and it's got a really nice print, but it's on the back. It's got a tiny little logo on the front.
Yes.
And I'm not having it.
No,
I'm sorry.
I hate it when that happens.
The only exception I will make is for that Brunswick t-shirt that I have that has the giant golden toucan on the back, because that would be ostentatious to have on the front. Anyway, it's not like us. We're getting sidetracked by something that's got fuck all to do with film. Ellie, what have you got for us? What have you been watching?
I've kind of been watching all sorts of stuff. So I watched a couple Sidney Lumet films, Dog Day Afternoon, Network. Good films, flawed in ways. Those films that you kind of like look up and it turns out that everyone thought this was the greatest film of all time. Then you watch it and you're like, that's not entirely true like 50 years later. But
You think
It's like that meme, the Dakota Johnson meme. That's not true, Alan.
you think Dog Day was this flawed?
less Dog Day Afternoon, it's more Network that I'm thinking of. Network seems to get like a huge like response at the time and is still like upheld, and you watch it and it's quite Zionist. Turns out that Faye Dunaway, who's great in that role in Network, where she's this high-powered TV executive who's desperate to put this crazy man on the airwaves, was only cast because it was supposed to be Vanessa Redgrave, but the screenwriter hated the fact that Vanessa Redgrave used her 1975 Oscar speech to call out for Palestinian rights. And then that also makes sense because the big tirade that he goes on when he gets on TV, what's the guy called? The broadcaster from Network who, you know, goes nuts. Like his big tirade is about how like Arabs are taking over the United States, which does have like a historical basis in the US oil crisis, but like recontextualized under the fact that the writer hated Vanessa Redgrave for calling out Palestinian rights, perhaps contextualizes just how messed up it is that he also never gets called up for that. I don't know, messed up film. But another film that I watched that has nothing to do with any of those, and I saw it really quite recently, and I don't really know how to feel about it, and I wonder if I'm going to learn how I feel about it just by talking about it now. I saw Clerks by Kevin Smith, which is, I think my impression really is just that I have been oversold this film, because that's another one that people talk about it like it is the greatest film of all time and it's a complete masterpiece, and then you watch it and it's like, I can see how it's maybe a little bit groundbreaking, but it is mostly just like a quite charming 90s stoner comedy. See, it's funny because they're talking about Star Wars, but they're talking using big words and long elaborate sentences.
I see.
And
I would find that funny.
yeah. It's I don't think that it's a bad film, but like if you look it up, people talk about it like it is the Bible, like that Kevin Smith changed cinema forever.
I guess because it was like he just made it using his credit card, right?
It's so impressive how much of a film it is, considering how no budget it is. But like that, I don't know. Is that it? Like, is that the only thing that's impressive about it? It didn't feel like it sort of like speaks to like a very like 1990s slacker ennui that I feel like is discussed loads of other places in 90s cinema. So I don't really see what it is that he like introduced. I don't really see how he broke the mold other than just being quite like a clever no budget filmmaker. But maybe the more time I have to think about it, the more I will settle on how I feel. But that's what I've been watching.
That could be one to revisit at a later date. Anahit, what have you got for us?
A real mixed bag of things. I rewatched the original Parent Trap the other day. That was
Haley
really
Mills.
charming. Yeah, it was really, really lovely. I had forgotten, I think I've maybe seen it once in my life when I was a child, and I'd forgotten how much the script actually is the same. Like, whole parts of the script are just, like, lifted into the Lindsay Lohan one, which I did not remember. But yeah, because of that, it's very funny. It's a really funny script, very charming. Haley Mills, very, very sweet. Always really, really gutting when the character that you remember being the very sophisticated older woman is now fully 8 years younger than you. That's upsetting. But we move. And then I also watched, this was a couple of weeks ago, News from Home, the Chantal Akerman that was showing at the Cameo. So I've now seen 2 Chantal Akerman films. I liked it. I didn't love it as much as I loved Jean Dielman, which is very unlike me because it is fully half the runtime of Jean Dielman. But I thought it was really, really beautiful. I liked how it's like kind of footage of her like filming New York, having like come to New York from France or Belgium.
I think she I'm not too sure. Yeah,
from
Belgium, I wanna say,
maybe Belgium. And it's like narrated over with her mother's letters to her, and all you hear are her mother. You don't hear like her replies. And as the film goes on, the letters become like fewer and fewer, and the gaps between them, the silences, are longer. And there are bits where suddenly the sound of the city takes over, so you can't hear what the mother's saying because like the noise of the traffic will suddenly come in and out. It was really, really dreamy, really meditative. Really liked it. There was one bit where are you okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Continue to talk about Chantal.
Okay. There was one bit where I couldn't look at the screen because she was filming from the back of a car, and it made me really motion sick. But other than that, I thought it was beautiful. That's mostly what I've seen.
I feel like motion sickness caused by films is somewhat of an underrated phenomenon, because you were talking about how In the Loop made you motion sick.
Yeah, I get it really badly. I had to leave when Katie Go did that program of disaster films at Summerhall. Do you remember, like a few years ago when their book came out? I went to see Melancholia because I was like, oh, I've never seen it before. A lot of Lars von Trier I find like really disgusting, but I had heard that like Melancholia was a bit more disturbing, but not like horrible. And I had to leave. I was with Carmen actually, and I had to leave after 40 minutes because I was about to throw up. Like that first half of it is so shaky, which is sad because I actually thought it was a really good film.
And actually the second half becomes much more classical as well.
Yeah. Maybe I just need to skip forward, watch it online and just skip forward to when it stops doing that. But yeah, it is. Does no one else get that?
I
get it more with YouTube videos that are shot with like a head camera, because it's less about, I think it's the combination of it being, because I sometimes get like travel sick and stuff. I think it's a combination of jittery movement and really high frame rate. I find something really quite unpleasant, and maybe this is an episode for later, of like things like fairly innocuous things that annoy us about films, because I find like really high frame rate stuff looks so cheap, so shit. And like it just makes everything look either like a soap opera or like everyone is sprinting.
Yes.
But they're all sprinting like with their clothes like glued to their bodies. They're too smooth. These men these days, they're too smooth.
That is true.
Brackets uncomplimentary.
Famously, like The Hobbit, right? That was the whole thing with The Hobbit, where they filmed it in a really high frame rate and it looked shit. I mean, they were also bad films with bad writing
the
and
fact
bad
that
direction.
It's a very high frame rate of something that's like not real.
Yeah.
Because The Hobbit didn't have like sets or costumes or anything.
No, exactly.
Like that. It was
just
all digital.
Yeah, it looks so.
But also makes everything look faker. So like I remember like because it's pretty much the same sets. The Hobbit sets are very similar to the Hobbit sets.
Like in the Shire.
The Shire. So, the Shire. But obviously they were shot in film back then and they look much more kind of like aged, and you don't really notice like all the kind of set design, and then they just look like, oh, that's clearly just been thrown up, and everything looked fake. So.
Yeah, it really did.
Because I remember, was it Collateral, the Michael Mann film, that was one of the first ones that was shot, like one of the first like major films that was shot on that kind of like newer digital stuff. Ironically, I saw that at the DCA in Dundee and started coughing uncontrollably, much as I did 2 minutes ago. Full circle moment for me. But that actually had the thing, like, even though it was shot in this kind of like higher frame rate digital thing, still looked good, because it turns out if you're half decent at making films, you can generally make it work. I think one of the things about doing like super high, any kind of like gimmicky stuff, is it makes you you think it's going to cover for the fact that you're shit at making films. But what if I told you, Jamie, it might just exacerbate the problem?
It's funny how like that is just went totally out of fashion now. Like I feel like they tried it and people realised it just didn't work, and then they just gave up. Because like there was that Ang Lee film as well, the Billy Lynn's Halftime Walk was like was shot in a similar way, and then everybody's just given up on that style now.
Anyway, we can do Haters Only as an episode at some point in the future, but for now, let's move on to some films that are coming out in the coming weeks, or came out last week. Probably a good point to put a dudumf there, and then we're sorted.
Yeah, and we're about to be haters again.
Okay, right. So should we do the first film of the week, which I believe we all watched? But let's see how that goes. Oh, I'd really like my film review. Let's see how that works out for you. So, this is The Ballad of Suzanne Césaire, which is the new sort of hybrid biopic documentary by Madeline Hunt Ehrlich. It is about the life and work of the surrealist writer Suzanne Césaire from Martinique in is Martinique in the Caribbean?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So it's set in so it's about her writing in the kind of like late 30s, mid 1940s, kind of Martinique's under Vichy France blockade, and she's part of a group of writers who are kind of pushing the bounds of like surrealist thought and political thought in Martinique and in turn throughout the Caribbean and the French-speaking world, and then beyond. So it's like it's a combination of like biopical elements, if that's a word. Let's move forward as if it is, and also some kind of like elements that are sort of metatextual about the making of these biopical elements, and also some documentary elements, got some arty elements. There's a fair few things going on. But Anahit, what does it all amount to in your mind?
So I made us watch this film, which I feel maybe I need to apologize for. I liked it. I made us watch this film because I studied Suzanne Césaire's husband, Aimé Césaire, who's like a really famous French kind of anti-colonial writer, thinker. He was one of my set texts in first year French. And we like studied a lot around, all of this idea. But I never actually really heard of her, which either is damning of the literary like teaching system, or how much extra reading I did. And it's possibly the latter.
Yeah, let's take 50-50. You know. Let's grab with both hands and see what we come out with.
But yeah, I found this a really interesting film because these are really both Suzanne Césaire and Aimé Césaire, who is also kind of in this a little bit. They're really, really interesting and complex figures. Their politics, the way that they wrote about race, the way they wrote about kind of ideas of like nationhood were really, really groundbreaking, and were also very, very influenced by surrealism, by Marxism, by all of these like really quite like theoretical and very, very knotty ideas. And so you do think like, how do you make a film about someone like that? I think also the film looks a lot at this idea of how do you make a film about someone who didn't necessarily want to be remembered. Like she's not really a public figure or like an intellectual figure in that way. I don't think she has a legacy or even necessarily wanted to have a legacy. And that is a question that the film sort of quite directly articulates. How do you sort of not mythologize, but like remember the legacy of someone and interpret someone who is always quite resistant to that? And the way that the director, Madeleine Hunt-Ehrlich, goes about that is just by not really making any sense. Brackets complimentary, I think, by having it just be this very like lyrical, very experimental, which really mimics a lot of her writing and also like Aimé Césaire's writing and all of that group, where things are just quite like dreamy and quite surrealist. You have this sort of meta thing of this actress who's playing her. The actress, by the way, this film like really touched some like core memories in me. The actress I've seen in, did any of you guys watch The Hookup Plan? It's like this French Netflix TV show. The first 2 seasons are really good, about a woman who got dumped and hasn't had sex for a year and is just like really hung up on her ex. And so her friends hire her a hooker. But they don't say he's a hooker. So it's really charming. It's so funny. It's such a good show. It's really good. Anyway.
Can I just say the roles reversed here? This is a bit different show.
Obviously.
Legit.
But it's really good.
But can I just say, if we were following the murderer, this would be a very different film.
Anyway, I think it's really charming. She plays the main character in that though. And I was like, oh my God, it's her in like such a different role. But she's playing an actress who's playing the role of Suzanne Césaire. And so a lot of it is about like, how can art capture other art? How can it like capture like ways of thinking, ways of life that are maybe like quite resistant to like straightforward narrative. I just found all of that like quite interesting. I don't know. If it had been any longer, I would have been so mad. But it is a tidy like 75 minutes long. It's weird.
75 minutes with end credits.
There we go. Exactly. I don't know. It's very dreamy. It's very beautiful to look at. It feels like watching a poem. If you don't like poetry, and I hate most poetry, maybe you won't like it in the way that people don't like poetry because a lot of poetry is shite. But if you have sort of time...
Aren't you the books editor?
Yeah, which means I know. But if you like have time for something to just kind of like wash over you a little bit and to maybe not try and find meaning in it. I think one of the things I really liked about reading her husband's work was that you could do all of your analysis and all of your like stupid literary theory on it, but in a way there was just something really beautiful about the way that he wrote and how weird and fragmentary it was. And I think there's something quite similar about this film as well. And I like respected it. Would I watch it again 1,000,000 times? No. Am I slightly sorry that I made you guys watch it? Yes. But I still thought it kind of was cool. I don't know.
Jamie, any advance on Kinda Cool?
Yeah, I mean, I think we come on here every week and moan about people making the most boring rote biopics. So this is definitely not that. I do appreciate the filmmaker trying to do something different. And I guess, yeah, as Anahit's saying, this is a person who's kind of been lost in the archive, you know, for so many reasons. You know, the fact she's a woman, the fact she, like, you know, the fact she lived where she lived. You know, colonial forces have not like saved her work. She didn't save her work. The fact her husband became much more famous. He was also a politician, and his work has been. I mean, there's countless couples where the you know, the female partner who's just as good a writer has been kind of eclipsed, and her work hasn't been sort of like brought into the canon the way that the man has. So there's so many reasons why this woman has not been remembered as perhaps she should have, and that film goes into that. And as Anahit says, I think part of the reason it is so fragmented is because her work is so fragmented. That's not only she writes in a fragmented way, but her kind of work is broken up. You know, it also talks about how she had 6 kids, and maybe that's the reason she stopped writing, because who can write when you're taking care of 6 kids? You know, who can write like this as well? Like write this poetic kind of essays and stuff. It's like very kind of dense writing. So that's all really interesting. I do kind of wonder maybe if this film would have worked better not in a cinema. Like I feel like actually if this was shown at the kind of Talbot Rice or something, and I had walked in and sort of just let it wash over me for like 25 minutes, I might actually have come away with the same feeling as like, this is a very kind of unknowable person, but I've got a sense of their writing and the poetry of it, and the sense of like, it's very atmospheric. It also gives you a sense of Martinique. Even though I think it was shot in America, I think it gives you a sense of the place where she grew up, where she was writing and living. Yeah, like don't go in expecting to get like the biography, really. Like there's also like things that happen, you're not even clear what's going on. So like, for example, there's a section where Andre Breton kind of visits, and like, he's the French poet and surrealist who I think was quite an influence on her and her husband. But there's also a suggestion that they're in some sort of thruple. Is that you say? Thruple.
Thruple.
Yeah, because there's like lots of them sort of lounging around in the grass, kind of looking at each other, kind of giving each other the eye, but never kind of goes into what's going on here. Like, are they having a love affair, or, you know, are they just enjoying the sun? I don't know. It's like, it's a film that you're going to walk away with lots of questions. But I did like it. I liked, it's almost like, the people who are trying to make the film also can't get to grips with it. So you see the actor, there's a sense that when the actor's reading the lines, she's trying to work out what's going on. And there's a bit where like, the clapper girl also becomes obsessed with Suzanne Césaire, and she starts like reading her letters and stuff. This young girl who is maybe like 18 or something. So there's the idea that, like the filmmaker, you know, these characters are trying to get to grips with Suzanne Césaire. Suzanne, fucking hell. Suzanne, what's her name? Suzanne Césaire. Yeah, they're trying to get to grips with her, and that's what the film's trying to do at the same time, but it never quite gets to grips with her. She's kind of unreadable, maybe, is how I took it. It also has a great final line. I don't know if you remember the final line. So the final line, I think this spells it, but Suzanne and her husband are in a field, and she says something very kind of cryptic and poetic to him about death. Like something like death is the end, but it's also the beginning, or something along those lines. And he goes, "What?" And she's like, "What?" And then it just goes fades to black. And it's like, that's the perfect ending for this film, because that's how I felt all the way through. It's like, what? So it's like almost like it's like, I love that kind of little joke ending, you know, sort of admitting, okay, what we've presented here is not, you know, like something to like uncode, really. It's something to like wash over you and sort of enjoy in that way. But yeah, if you're someone like me who likes to kind of understand what they're watching, I did find it, I must admit, a bit frustrating, you know, like, but I feel like it's given me the opportunity to like go and read about her and learn how to say her name.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I found from watching it is that it really does straddle, because it doesn't just straddle like documentary and biopic and stuff like that. It straddles like the idea of what actually a feature film is supposed to have in it. Because I think in this film there are 2 or 3 very, very good, like you say, short art films straining to get out. And then for me, there was a bunch of other stuff. That is the bluntest way of putting it. A bunch of other stuff that was also there. Because I found like very atmospheric, performances generally pretty good, but just like sometimes I struggle to work out or like ascertain for myself, like who is the intended audience for this, short of the Suzanne Césaire fan club, which, as Anahit discussed, is already a small congregation. I think that it's like there's an impressive ambition, but I'm not sure whether that ambition, Ellie, is fully paid off. But I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, it's complicated. I mean, I think that the thing that I thought was there's a completely other version of this film. And that version of the film is the version of the film that you see when you actually know a lot about Suzanne Césaire's work in life, is what I'm assuming. Like, you say that you have a very certain experience because, Anahit, you have this like connection to the writing. I know nothing about surrealist writing in general, much less like the niche sort of writers from that pantheon, and it does not hold your hand about it. You sort of like, yeah, even though there is this kind of blend of ideas, that there are these kind of like dramatizations, I wouldn't even really say that they're like biographical elements, or what did you say? Biopical?
Biopical.
I wouldn't even say that they're necessarily biopical, because they don't really present like a narrative to her life. We don't strictly learn about events that happened in her life, rather than just the voiceover she provides of excerpts from her writing give us the context we need. And it's not really here to educate you about Suzanne Césaire as much as it is about showing you people who are familiar with her work, these actors, these people who are recreating them, coming out of the script and breaking the fourth wall and having this little like meta-narrative thing where they're kind of coming to grips with what the art means to them. So I felt that there was like a little bit of a lost connection, because I don't have my own relationship with the subject matter. The parts of the film that were about the creator's relationship with the subject matter maybe didn't hit for me. So I don't know, I sort of felt like I needed to know a little bit more to approach it. But at the same time, that's not to say that the film doesn't have merits. And actually, I think that it's really unconventional structure. Like you say, it's sort of more of a poem than it is a film. I think that it probably does benefit them in some way. Like when we do kind of like exist in the world of Suzanne Césaire, like in the 1940s, it's really convincing. It's really immersive. It's really like beautifully shot. The sort of costuming and the set design and the prop work is all like very great and very like Art Deco. And the actors really commit when they are playing these roles. Like they feel like, you know, even though you're not actually like, again, seeing them go places, do things, reenact moments from these lives, they are like slow dancing and making like taking long gazes at each other that do intone some kind of deeper connection between them. And I wonder if kind of like, I don't know, not trying to ambitiously recreate the scope of Suzanne Césaire's life and just trying to kind of like, I don't know, capture a certain aesthetic, a certain vibe. Maybe that has sort of like liberated the filmmakers to put so much effort into these little glimpses into her world. But yeah, just very interesting. And I won't fault the film for kind of doing it unconventionally, but it's so strange that it is a blend of kind of meta-narrative elements, fourth wall breaks, and also like a biopic, except that it's also not even really a biopic. It's not super successful as a biopic in teaching you the story of her life.
It has meta-narrative, but has left the actual narrative on the bus.
Yeah.
I think it's proof that one cannot live on vibes alone.
Oh, I don't know.
You can. It's actually funny. It's kind of like it's funny watching it after Pavement, which is quite a different film, but it has a lot of similarities in that it's intentionally not trying to like give you some sort of clear narrative. It's like, you know, I think if you like Pavement, you'd have got more out of that film than just turning up. Similarly, I think if you maybe do a bit of reading afterwards or read beforehand about Suzanne Césaire, Césaire. Why do I keep Césaire? Suzanne Césaire. Césaire.
Yeah.
Césaire. Yeah, I think you would get more out of it. So like, and it's intentionally opaque. So like, I can't really complain that it's opaque because it's obviously trying to do that.
I mean, you can't complain. You can't complain, but legally you do not have to like it. Which
you know, like if a film is unclear because the filmmaker's bad at filmmaking, that's one thing. But this filmmaker is intentionally being unclear because this person has been kind of forgotten through history.
Oh yeah, I get that. Like, intention landed, bullseye, first time, no misses. But yeah, let's find out what we all thought. Let's narrow down this quite complicated, knotty film into a simple number from 1 to 5. Jamie, out of 5, what would you give it?
I'll give it a 3.
Ellie?
I'll give it a 3. It feels wrong to give it lower when I've like shown up to watch a Suzanne Césaire film and been like, but I don't know anything about Suzanne Césaire. So I'm going to give it a 3.
3.5, I would say.
I'm going to give it a 2. Only because... Don't shake your head. Only because...
This is the white man at work.
Well,
this is what she was talking about.
You know what? I'll take it. Call a spade a spade. 2.5 then.
There we go.
Oh yeah, we should probably say when it's out. It's out this Friday. Tape Collective are putting it out. It'll probably be on in art house cinemas across the country. So go and check it out. It is called The Ballad of Suzanne Césaire, and you've been told about what it's like.
Do we know if it's even showing in Scotland?
Nope.
Great. Huge.
Yeah. And now for something completely different. As I believe, is it just Anahit that's seen the new Superman? Mm-hmm. Right, Anahit is going to do a speed run of the new Superman film. I think, is it possible that we've ever had 2 films back to back that have been such different beasts to deal with?
Imagine if I actually, no way, I can link them.
Do it.
It's all about the mythology of the figure. You know? Do you see what I mean?
I don't need to do preamble for Superman. Everyone
No,
knows
everyone knows
Superman,
what it is.
and it's James Gunn who did Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, it is. So,
And bald Nicholas Hoult.
yes. Yeah, who apparently actually shaved his head. Well, his son shaved his head.
Sorry, his son shaved his head.
Yeah, for the role. Isn't that quite
What
sweet?
do you mean his son shaved his head for the role?
Like, he
Yeah,
did
I
that.
know. You don't even make the hand gesture. It
What are
sounds
you
like his
talking
son
about?
ceremonially shaved his head, like he was sending him off into battle.
Oh, no, I think it was like he needed his head shaved and then his son did it. Like in this sweet little...
DC must have a makeup department. Come on, what's going on?
Him turning up on set and it's all patchy as shit.
Yeah, maybe they fixed it.
What,
I
did
don't
a
know.
child shave your head? No.
Okay, we all know what Superman is about. So he is an alien that has been sent to Earth as a baby by his parents from his planet that has since exploded or died or something. Was raised in Kansas by like very loving parents. Is now in Metropolis, working as a journalist for the Daily Planet as Clark Kent with his special little glasses, and the rest of the time moonlights as Superman. So like all of that within this film has already happened, because God bless, this film is not an origin story in any way, which I really actually respected James Gunn doing. I want to review this because I went to see it last night and I thought it was so charming. I thought it was so lovely.
I know I always say people aren't being interrogated when they're on this podcast. I'm going to read you 2 text messages that Anahit sent to the Cine Skinny 2K25 group chat. I'm going to read you the messages and the timestamps. 23:29. Guys, I watched Superman. Please, can I review it? New message. I believe in men again.
It's true though. I really did have a moment where I was like, oh yeah, no, they can actually be really nice. And that's
You hear that,
really
Jamie?
lovely.
We're back.
I don't know. I think what this film gets really, really right, which the DC films have not for a long time, is that Clark Kent / Superman is really nice. He's like very sweet. He's very earnest. He's very sincere. Playing it either in that very like dark Man of Steel way or in that very like quippy, marvel-y way just does not work for this character. And what James Gunn and the man that plays Superman, hang on, sorry, my future husband, what's he called? David something? David Cornsweet, I think? Yeah, David Cornsweet. What they get so right is he's just nice. He's just doing his best. And it's got this really, really sweet, very like sentimental heart to it, which is kind of fucking annoying at times. He gives this big speech about like he has an ability to love and that's what makes him human, and that's objectively an annoying thing for someone to say. But it is also what the character of Superman historically has been, and I don't think I've seen a Superman film since really the Christopher Reeve one, which got the character of it right, which was just like, this is like a nice, earnest man that's doing his best. He's in love with this girl. There's a dog, super dog, Crypto, is like running around all over the place. It's very cartoony. It's very silly. It doesn't take itself seriously, but it doesn't take itself seriously not in that like, very like jokey, quippy, edgy way, but just in that it's like, this is a very sincere film about a magic man and his magic dog. And that's quite nice. I really like that. Its politics are... I leaned over to my friend halfway through the film and I was like, is this about Palestine? Because the whole thing is sort of like Lex Luthor is doing this whole thing with like this made-up state is trying to invade another made-up state, and it has this enormous military power, and the other state is it's like full of brown people, is very like indigenous coded. And so like its politics also are kind of thinking about like power in about as un-American a way as is possible for this kind of film. Obviously, at some point, the indigenous people put up a flag that's about Superman. People wouldn't actually do that. Like, these people do not give a shit about white men. But, like, you know, the film still kind of, like, brings that in. Like, it is still an American film. But I did think that it was really interesting in this day and age that so much of its politics is about how do you do the sort of quote-unquote right thing that isn't just about this sort of, like, America is like a military might and, like, preserving this idea of, like, an Americanness.
If there was a Superman, he'd be on our side.
Yeah.
Wait, come back. No. No, over here, Mr. Superman.
And so it has, this very, like, broad humanist, which is obviously, like, a very, like, milquetoast, like, liberal, not very useful politics to it. But I just thought it was interesting that, like, this film, which, again, feels very, very different from what has come before. And it's just, like, an interesting cultural reflection. I don't think, to be clear, it is politically radical, but it is, interesting how it's, like, engaging with that. I really can't begin to emphasize enough how nice this man is. Rachel Brosnahan? How do you say her name? The girlie from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Brosnahan?
Brosnahan, yeah, obviously. Rachel Brosnahan, she plays Lois Lane. She's really, really good. It has a really good supporting cast, like Nathan Fillion in it, having a really lovely time.
For a split second, you could say Nathan Fielder.
Could you imagine?
The plan. We get this dog.
No, Nathan Fillion. Skylar Gisondo, who I haven't seen really in much since... what was the last thing that he was in? I feel it was like Licorice Pizza or something. I don't know. I think he's great. He's in I don't know. I just had a really lovely
Is
time.
that true? The joke was he thought he was trying out for Superman when he got up for his audition.
Really?
I think that may be made up, but it was kind of funny.
That is funny. Yeah, no, he is not. No, he's not that. But he's like having a really lovely time.
He did make a very good superhero film going off. What was it called? Sky High? Did you ever see that? Is that him, or am I getting mixed up with somebody else? Is he not in Sky High? Maybe I'm.
Wait, as in the boy from
maybe
Booksmart? Yeah, I think you're thinking of something else.
Oh well. Anyway.
Oh, apparently he was in. Oh yeah, he was in Spider-Man. He was like the kid. Anyway, whatever.
Ignore me.
I'm going to look up who you do mean in a second. Either way, I had a really lovely time. I thought it was really, really wholesome. It felt like what a superhero film should be, in that it's kind of fucking stupid. it means truly nothing, but it's also just, it knows that about itself, and it's like quite earnestly meant and sincere and silly, and that's fine.
Yeah, I'm really curious about this film. I do kind of want to watch it because I'm not like a huge like comic book like fanatic, but I do know that like a pretty significant like historical comic book was Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, which is from like 1986, and that's when he kind of like revolutionized things by reimagining Superman not as the like all-American, super benevolent, just nice guy in every way, but like what if he was a tool of the state or something like that? What if there was an ambiguity to his character, which was really revolutionary for the time. But I think part of the reason that nobody ever gave a shit about Zack Snyder's films is because, well, that's already like a really long time that like what people thought was interesting about Superman was what if he was evil or fucked up or something like that. And it's been my theory that like nowadays it's probably harder to write a story about how Superman, with all of his like infinite power and his like greater understanding of the universe, is just a nice guy. And it's like harder to make that convincing to a much more like cynical audience who have only watched these very like gritty revisionist reboots.
Or The Boys, who have this Homelander who's
Yeah.
essentially Superman. Yeah.
I think, that's the thing. If superheroes actually existed, The Boys is the most realistic depiction of how something that has that much power would be used, the relationship between them and the state. Like 100%. Obviously, there would be nothing like sweet or good or nice about it at all. But I think part of the superhero genre is like buying into this almost fantasy idea of what if we could imagine something else. And sometimes it's a little bit nice if you just buy into its bullshit rather than constantly trying to be like, oh no, but actually it would go this way. Like obviously it would go that way. Like these people would suck. But it's kind of nice to be like, oh, and he had like this little curl. I don't know. It was really nice.
And also, and it's not anything to do with this particular film, but see if you're being like, why isn't the film about the man who can fly more realistic and connected to the current milieu I live in? To which I say, shut it.
Even James Gunn. So James Gunn directed this.
Yes.
He wrote Brightburn, which is a film from 2019. I've not seen it. It seemed kind of dumb, but it's like a horror film about Superman. It's a horror film about two farmers in Kansas, and like a boy comes and they adopt a boy, but the boy starts showing powers, and essentially because he's a boy, he's a massive sadist or something like that. So it's like a horror film about that. But I was like, that's an interesting idea, even though it is still feeding into this The Boys, Watchmen, kind of like superheroes being like bad thing. And then I saw it got bad reviews. So I was like, maybe I won't watch it. But it's funny. He's kind of changed tack. And now he's like, no, Superman sucks, actually. Superman's great, actually.
Yeah. He's apparently in charge. I'm trying to find this film. Apparently he's in charge of the new
DC universe.
Yeah, the DCU, which they're completely rebooting for the 12,000th. Okay. For the 12,000th time. And honestly, when the film ended, I was like, I did feel like a small moment of dread where I was like, you guys are going to ruin this. Yeah. Like 100%. You're going to make some fucking sequel and it's going to become some franchise and it's not going to be what this was. This felt really nice because it felt actually fucking innocuous. You know, it's the first one. They haven't announced anything else. You can just live in this little fantasy world that someone made a silly film about a man that can fly for 5 minutes, and that's all it has to be. Obviously, it will become something else.
My big issue with Superman as a character, although I do love the original Christopher Reeve film, is that he's actually quite boring because he's invincible. Like, really, all you've got is kryptonite. That's the only kind of dramatic like thing that can happen in the film. Like, oh, somebody comes along with kryptonite and destroys them. I don't know what happens in this film, but
there is in fact kryptonite.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, okay, what's going to happen in this film? Oh, I wonder if Lex Luthor's going to get hold of some kryptonite and be able to beat up Superman. It's like it's just a terrible dramatic device for a film.
But then that's the case of like a lot of superhero films, isn't it? Where a lot of them, wasn't it the whole thing with the Hulk in a lot of the MCU films where like this person, like it's almost the cop, like they say it in Avengers, don't they? Where he's like, we have a Hulk. Like that's the
but the Hulk is vulnerable when he's not the Hulk. That's the thing. The Hulk is weak when he's like, you know, like when he's Banner, he can be destroyed. You know, like, and it's a tragic figure because he doesn't want to be the Hulk.
Yeah.
Whereas Superman is Superman. Superman's alter ego is Clark Kent.
Yeah.
You know, so like, or like, you know, think of like Batman. He's just a guy in a suit. You know, like he can get beat up easily. You know, Spider-Man's just a kid who gets beat up all the time. You know, like part of those films is like, the character gets hammered. Whereas like that doesn't really happen in Superman. So I just feel like there's no
It
that
does in this one. He does get beat up quite a lot.
when Kryptonite's involved.
No, not only when.
Okay.
Other times too. Which actually is maybe why it did work, because it felt like, obviously I wasn't like, oh, he's going to die. We all know how the film is going to end. But you did see him get beat up quite a lot. Like the film actually starts with, it's like, not to spoilers, but like for the first like 2 seconds of the film, but it's like, oh, 3 centuries ago this thing happened, 3 decades ago this like baby arrived on Earth, 3 weeks ago and then it was like 3 minutes ago he lost his first fight, and that's like how the film starts. And so actually I think it kind of levels that playing field a little bit from the off, and Kryptonite doesn't come into it for like quite a while. And so it does feel a little bit like he is just like some kid from Kansas, a little bit, which I think is actually what makes that character interesting. Anyway, yeah, I thought it was really lovely. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it sounds lovely.
It was.
How lovely was it out of 5, just for our records?
Also 3.5. Like, it is still like a dumb superhero film, but it was a good one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, that's Superman. It's on everywhere. You can't get away from it. Okay, and then for our final bit today, we wanted to talk a bit about, well, we've noticed there's lots of classic cinema, lots of cult cinema on the big screens at our various favourite cinemas in Glasgow and Edinburgh and beyond this summer. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about, really, is like, why, like, what is the enduring appeal of these kind of seasons of classic films, especially in an era of streaming, etc. But actually, a thing that I want to come to you on, Jamie, as a mega film buff extraordinaire, as the person on the podcast who knows the most about films. You look concerned.
I wouldn't
Don't
say
worry, this is a fun bit of podcasting.
No, I think
we're
that is
about
true.
to do.
Are you going to
No, I
argue? No,
agree,
yeah.
You're the film editor, Jamie.
Yes, that's okay.
That's why you got the big chair, slowly rotating away in it. When people talk about cult cinema and cult classics, what do you think it is that makes a film ascend to this kind of plateau of being a cult classic? Because often the things that are put forward as cult films aren't necessarily the best films. And they're not necessarily the most like spectacular films. But there's a very clear kind of like emergent canon, certainly since like the 70s and 80s, of films that are considered to be cult hits, and they're always on at these kind of repo screenings, and they're always on in these seasons, and anytime you see someone's got a gap in their film program, they'll put on one of these kinds of films. So what do you think it is that makes a good cult film?
Okay, well, if I start off with the definition of cult film, I think it's kind of changed over the years. I think originally cult films were films which were quite niche, but had very dedicated audiences. So something like, I guess one of the original cult films is like Rocky Horror Picture Show. That was a film that wasn't a mainstream film at all, but it could play at cinema every week for like years because people would come along again and again to see it. So it's a film it has to be a film that isn't necessarily mainstream or didn't originally have mainstream success, but somehow over the years kind of gathered an audience. And that could be through things like I say, like shown at cinemas again and again, or it could just be something that was on TV loads and people have become like obsessed with it. I mean, another film that you might not call cult film, but like something like It's a Wonderful Life, for example, was not a hit when it came out, but it was shown on American TV so much that it's became the kind of de facto Christmas film. So in a way, there's a kind of cult around that. And I guess there is popular, like really popular films are cult films, like something like Some Like It Hot or you know, The Wizard of Oz. You know, these are cult films because people get obsessed with them as well. There's also like an obsessed element where people kind of like can watch them again and again, and people can get stuff out of them again and again. So I think the idea of a cult film is changing. I think sometimes people think a cult film is just a weird film that is being released, you know, like it's kind of quirky in some way, but I don't think actually that's what a cult film is. I think it's a film that requires some sort of obsessive fan base. It doesn't have to be a huge one, but just something about it that brings people back again and again. If that answers your question. Was that your question?
I think that does. I think that gets somewhere towards starting to answer our question. You see, because there's slightly connected, but me and Jamie were talking about this in the office. People, and I almost spoke about it when we were talking about. ironically all just worked out that the only thing I could have talked about for the what we've been watching section is the Shrek films. And I think that people of my generation, I think that one of the reasons that Shrek is so popular in online meme culture is exactly the kind of film that people would be subjected to repeated viewings of when the TV trolley came out on a rainy day at school, in a way that like Madagascar, Ice Age, and even things like Toy Story. I think the Toy Story films are objectively much better films than the Shrek films. The Shrek films have this place in pop culture and in people's imaginations of what makes a kind of like film that you remember from your past, partly because they've been drummed in so repeatedly. This thing that Jamie talks about, it's like you have a kind of obsessive or repeat audience. Sometimes you can manufacture one of those by making people watch them instead of going to do football because it's raining outside. But I suppose I want to come to the rest of us now that we've sort of like talked a bit about what makes these kind of things. Does anybody have like a favorite ever one of these kind of like classic big screen situations they've been in where they've been watching an older film or a cult classic and realised, oh yeah, no, that's why that works. I mean, Anahit, you've spoken a lot about going to see Lord of the Rings multiple times.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But I remember watching that in the cinema, like when it actually came out as well. I think the rep screenings that I get really excited about are either like the really old films, like the 30s, 40s films, like when they showed His Girl Friday at the Cameo. That was a very important moment for me. Or honestly, like recently, I would say I actually watch more rep films than actual films in the cinema, because most films actually were, and especially older ones, were designed to be seen that way. And so there's something really, really fucking special about being able to see it without any of the other distractions that otherwise come with watching films these days. So one that I really loved that it didn't click for me until I saw it at the Film House a few years ago was Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven. It's such a fucking beautiful film, but it's a film that is very easy to sort of turn away from and go on your phone if you're just like at home by yourself with it on your laptop. But watching it on like the actual screen, it became one of my favorite ever films. Like I fucking love that film. It's also coincidentally on at the Film House again in the next couple of weeks, I think.
I think it's on maybe next weekend if you're listening to this when it comes out.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, I think for me, there's an element of like, cult classics, which also the way that you guys were describing it, it did make me think a little bit about the relationship between like a cult classic and how that was sort of formalized and meme culture a little bit. Like, do you know what I mean? Something about something, the way that it becomes, there's often a comedy value or a recycled value to it, or a way that like you keep returning to it and it sort of takes on new cultural connotations as the generations go on or whatever. That does make me think about like meme culture a little bit. But anyway, yeah, I do like those, but I also just really like good films that you can see and often you're experiencing for the first time within that context. And yeah, it feels really special every time.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering about this because you're right, there is like a very slightly interactive element with like making memes, and with Rocky Horror people dress up and stuff and shout things out, but that's more of a sort of theatrical thing. So I was sort of like, what is like, at least in my mind, a cult film, or where does the kind of like line lie for me? And I didn't really like land on anything in particular, but I was looking at like the Film House programming and the GFT programming and stuff like that. A film I saw that's coming up was Human Traffic, which you can see at the GFT if you're listening to this podcast the day it comes out at 8:40. But that's a like 90s film with John Sim, where it's about rave culture in the UK, in Cardiff, I think, actually. And it's incredibly of its time. Everyone is in very garish like Y2K clothing. It's all about, essentially it's a very loose plot about them just having a crazy night out one weekend, just getting he's like, I've got a £10 note in my pocket, I'm gonna get loaded up on like pints, shots, cocktails, fags, eckies. I'm like, on £10? Are you fucking kidding me? But like,
this was back when £10 was really big.
Yeah,
you had to like fold it up to get in your pocket.
Yeah. But it's like very much that kind of like drilling into this very particular sense of like youth culture, alienation from like British nationalism and from family values in the 90s. And it's by no means a perfect film. Like, when I saw it a couple of years ago, like, I was kind of impressed with how some of the sort of more like, I don't know, like, anti-conservative ideals kind of hold up. And they call out the 90s rave subculture for including a lot of cultural appropriation. Like, they do a lot of jokes about white boys with dreads. But at the same time, because it is the 90s, when the girls are talking like girly to each other, they're just using black accent. So some ways it has not aged great. But that's the thing, is like, that's a film that will be so tremendously like valuable to the people who lived through that time, and that it can kind of maybe capture something that they went through, but it's also something super useful to people who are curious about that time, who weren't part of that subculture. So I think that's something to do with it, is the fact that like cult films do kind of offer you a window into a very particular place or time or like way of thinking that it's not necessarily the goal of more mainstream blockbusters to do. Like, if you're thinking about films, again, I've not seen Superman, but like, I think that the thing about a lot of like big superhero films is that they are largely for everyone. And that actually like studios are really trying to hedge their bets and just reach the like widest possible demographic they can across the UK, across the US, across China. And so when you're doing that, sometimes it feels like the film is not necessarily for anyone if it's for everyone. Whereas like when I think of cult films, I was looking at the other programming they're doing, and it's like, you know, Studio Ghibli, I think you can see My Neighbor Totoro on Cameo this weekend on Sunday 6 p.m. And Filmhouse do like their Powell and Pressburger stuff all the time, and it's like allowing you kind of an opportunity to kind of understand that particular time period from people who were part of that culture. And yeah, like that's kind of what cinema is doing, right? It's like, and that's, I think, why cinemas do have a responsibility to show older films or to show rep films, to not necessarily just show out new releases or like what everybody is watching.
I do get a bit frustrated though with programming and distribution. Sometimes I feel they do bring out the same films over and over again.
Oh, 100%.
Like, Studio Ghibli is a great example because, yeah, you can see Spirited Away or My Neighbor Totoro anytime you want because they're on all the time, but they never bring out the weird ones. Where's Pompoko? You know, where's the one with the raccoons? Where's all the really depressing ones? You know, Grave of the Fireflies is quite rarely shown because cynically they want in a big family audience. You know, these films that are a bit more obscure don't get the kind of love. And actually, if anything, I'd say those obscure ones are the kind of cult films because they're the ones that might get kind of like more loyal fan base. So yeah, I appreciate programmers who kind of go against the grain a little bit. So, you know, this month I just had a look. You can see lots of films that I think are maybe overplayed. So like the Seven Samurai, Stop Making Sense, Red Shoes, Do the Right Thing, Barry Lyndon, like all clearly masterpieces. Like, and obviously not everyone's seen these films, and it's great to bring them back and let younger audiences who haven't seen them get a chance to see them. But I do think distributors can get a bit lazy and a bit unimaginative, and I really think this is how you get like a canon that's kind of like feels kind of frozen, or like a bit like kind of like a monolith, that because it's just the same things over and over again. So I do appreciate, you know, when I look through and I see things that I haven't seen on the big screen or I haven't seen very often on the big screen. So for example, this month the JT can see To Die For, the Gus Van Sant film from the early 90s, which I don't think I've never seen on the big screen. Really great film. But it's not a perfect film. It's a kind of awkward film, and it's shown for a 30th anniversary. But that's the kind of film I'll look out for. The films that don't have the kind of like, you know, Criterion Collection or the kind of Blu-rays that are like, or the seasons, but they're a bit the outliers in people's sort of like filmography. Another one is they're showing Desperately Seeking Susan. Now that's a film I've seen loads when I was younger in the 80s, but again, it's like not a kind of like thought of as like a classic in that way. It's like more of a kind of like fun 80s romantic comedy, but it's getting a re-release, and that's the kind of film I want to see again on the big screen and maybe have a chance to kind of reappraise. So like I'm more for like you know, I would encourage like programmers to seek out the kind of more weirder films, and a good, I mean, a program we've always like championed on the podcast is Queer Cinema Sundays. For example, they're showing a Tilda Swinton film called Female Perversion, which I hadn't even heard of, like a Tilda Swinton film from like the mid-90s, which I'm sure is never screened on the big screen in years. Probably not since it was released, but it's coming out and you can see it. So
yeah, and that's what I want to give another shout out to the GFT about. There was Scorsese of the month, now Coen Brothers of the month, because that does that thing of getting away from this kind of like meme idea of what old films are like, or like non-new releases, and says, actually, like, we're going to go through as many of these as we can get our hands on. So they've got Raising Arizona this month, but they kind of are going through the back catalogue in whatever order they are going through it. And I think that is actually like a really useful thing to do, because it's one of the things that you find with all art, but particularly with art from a different time period, is it often does need some kind of contextualization, or you need to try and understand it in the mindset and of the time that it was produced. And seeing a kind of run of these films from, like the early 90s into the 2000s can help you kind of see both the progression of the filmmakers, but also the progression of like film in general. Especially when you're dealing with like quite influential people, because that often seems to be the case as well when you get things that are programmed. It's your Coens, your Lynches, people of this nature who are like, because a lot of the people who go to rep screenings at cinemas are exactly the kind of people like us who sit around talking for ages about films. And what do they like? They like films that they can have a chat about afterwards.
Well, Lynch is a good example, actually. I really like how cameos like celebrating Lynch. Lynch died, and I think a few cinemas, what they did is they just showed Blue Velvet and they showed Mulholland Drive, and like, okay, that's enough because those are the famous ones that people are going to come and see. But what Cameo have done is they're going to show every film, and not only are they just showing every film, they're showing each film with a film that is either inspired Lynch or has been inspired by Lynch. So, for example, I think this month they're showing Wild at Heart, which is a film that's showed quite a lot, but they're showing it with Wizard of Oz, which is the film he takes his inspiration from. So it'll be lovely to see those two together. And yeah, so like that kind of interesting programming where not only you're just like, making an easy buck by showing a film everybody loves and there's kind of cult following for, but actually putting it in context with other films, or showing it, or showing it in a season long, which makes it sort of, makes it not just like a cash grab. It's actually a bit more of an interesting kind of way of looking at a film.
Which is like the art of the double bill as well, right? Like, was it GFT recently that did like a few double bills, and one of them was Virgin Suicides and Picnic at Hanging Rock,
yeah.
I think.
I think it was yesterday. Was it the weekend?
Was it? Yeah, I think it was really recently. And I always find that really interesting as well. Like, that's part of what curation should do, is it should kind of frame things in a particular way. And a really, really well done double bill can like create a conversation between two films that I think is really, really interesting.
And as we've discussed many times in the last few months on this podcast, new releases, much like you can't survive on vibes alone, you can't survive on new releases alone. You're really rolling the dice sometimes. So, more power to the cinemas that are keeping things interesting. Cameo, GFT, Filmhouse, all of their respective programs are on their respective websites, and you can go and see things at those, and you'll have a nice time. That's a fairly good summation of that conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you for leading us in the right direction on that one, Jamie, by the way. Film expert confirmed. I
don't know. I blacked
Did you just go
out.
into like
I had no idea.
I wouldn't know what the wrong direction would have been. What would you have said?
Well, we'll find out in 2 weeks' time when the podcast returns. So, yeah, I think we're probably about done for today because we've been going for an hour and 10 minutes. A nice bumper episode for everybody. You're all welcome. So, yeah, thank you, Anahit.
Thank you.
Cheers, Ellie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Cheers, Pierre.
We will be back, I believe, in 2 weeks' time. We might be talking about the Edinburgh International Film Festival in our next episode, or maybe we've got one before that. I think I'm getting nods from Anahit that we've got one until we start talking about the film festival. But I don't want to hold myself to that. So maybe next time we'll be talking about the Edinburgh Film Festival or something else. Either way, it'll be good. And it'll definitely be very well planned.
I was going to say, I think we're going to talk about the new Hong Sang-soo.
Oh, yes, we are going to talk about the new
the
Hong Sang-soo.
Yeah,
there you go. And then we'll have some other stuff as well. Mm-hmm. That'll be good.
Yeah, we'll be good.
Maybe we'll be back here. Maybe we'll be back at EHFM.
Who can say?
I can't say. Ellie, can you say?
No.
You literally make the schedule, you could say.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.